Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it is Thanksgiving Day, and a lot of Americans will be celebrating that. Going to Grandma's house, going to their mother's house, cooking in the kitchen, watching some TV, hanging out with friends. That's pretty much what most people will be doing today. Not everyone. I know not all of you. Some of you won't, some of you will, and that's fine. Technically, we aren't doing anything today for Thanksgiving other than just, well, working and cooking because we're having a big meal on Sunday. Um, and I mean a big meal, not just a few family members big, but like, a few hundred people big, 150 to 200 people. Our community, our preparedness homestead, prepared homesteaders of the Ozarks, which is what it's called. We started this last year and we're doing it again this year, second annual. And we just put on a big feast, and it's just a dinner that everyone in our community can come to and hang out, because some people have been ostracized by family members because of political stance or because things they put in their body or won't put in their body, and just all this kind of stuff. And so we started having it, and it's really a highlight of our year. And so starting today, I'm going to be cooking a turkey or two a day between now and Sunday, getting ready for it. I think between myself and a few other people in the community, there'll be about 20 or so turkeys made. I think somewhere around 500 bread rolls are being cooked, 100 pounds or so of mashed potatoes, maybe more. Um, a lot of food's being cooked, and it's a extremely fun event. It's just an all-day family hangout stuff. So anyways, that's what we're doing. That's what will keep us busy for the next few days at least. Anyways, it is a day of, I guess, remembrance and of Thanksgiving. And it's so politicized anymore. I've already seen this week a bunch of stupid videos about how it's racist, and it's all this kind of stuff. And then there's also the camp that thinks that it's maybe too pagan, or it's all this kind of stuff. And regardless of whether you celebrate what's going on, I do think that it's certainly worthy that at least once a year you should be doing it all the time. I mean, really, you should be doing it often, but my goodness, at least once a year. Be thankful. Be thankful for what we have, and be thankful that we live in the time that we live in. As bad as it looks like, as bad as it is, that we should be thankful for that. And if nothing else, then because you and I have the opportunity to make sure that our children and grandchildren and so on might have a better life than us. We've always looked at better life meaning, more money, more convenience, more things, more luxurious. But that's not necessarily always the case. We're trying to make a better life for our children, or build something that's better for them, so that when we pass, they have land, and they have skills, and they have a community that no matter how bad it gets in their lifetime, they'll be able to withstand it, and they'll have a definite step up from their peers, because they have this understanding of the world and of the Father. So, anyways, let's try as much as we can to see the beauty still in this world, and the beauty in the Father's creation, and the gifts that we are given by Him every day, and be thankful for that. Anyways, still a little bit of talk about the whole car bombing thing yesterday. At first they came out and said that it was some kind of car bombing terrorist attack there in New York at the border between New York and Canada. And then they came out later, the governor came out and said that there's no evidence of a terrorist attack or explosives. It was just some old guy that crashed his fancy car. I think that there's probably still a little something else going on. I don't know, maybe a cover-up. It just seems like it was so quick to go from one end to the other. I don't know. Like I said yesterday in yesterday's video, none of us know unless we were there. So we're unsure of what's going on with that, but I suspect that there's probably more. Not that necessarily it was a terrorist attack. May not have been. It didn't look like a car bomb to me when I saw the explosion. It looked like a fuel bomb a fuel explosion of the gas tank. So that part is probably true, but is there a psyop going on? Well, there's always a psyop going on, folks. My goodness, haven't you been listening to me for a while? There's always a psyop going on. And always remember that. Yes, it's still coffee time. It's always coffee time. There's always a psyop going on. We're always being played. We're always being played. All the wars and stuff that's going on, and the tit for tat all over the world with, North and South Korea and Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan and Israel and Gaza and on and on and on. And it's divisive. It's to instill fear. It's to get people more and more to a position that they accept more and more control over their life, more totalitarian, control over their life, because the world is scarier, right? The world's scary, and so I need more safety. In fact, I've seen recent studies over the last couple of years of the large amounts, like by far majority amounts of even Americans are willing to give up freedom so that they can have, a safer world, which is so ironic, because that's exactly what, was it Ben Franklin said, those that, are willing to give up freedom for safety to deserve neither, or something like that. I know I'm very much paraphrasing and butchering it, but you get the point. Americans have become such a fearful people, We're terrified. And I think it's because we live a good life. The more luxurious and comfortable our lives are, the more we're afraid of losing them. If you live a hard life, it's like, number one, if I lose it, I haven't lost much. And number two, who wants this life? It's hard. Who wants to take this from me, right? But when it's luxurious and valuable according to world standards, then you become afraid, because you don't want it taken away from you. And because you've become soft, because you become soft when you have that luxurious lifestyle. And that's basically where we've become as Americans. And I know some of you say, oh, I don't live in a luxurious lifestyle. Yes, you do. I guarantee you that at least 90+%, I would say probably 100% of you watching live by far a more luxurious lifestyle than your grandparents did, or your great-grandparents, and certainly your great-great-grandparents. And that's what I'm getting at. It doesn't mean that you're living in a $1 million mansion driving a Rolls Royce. Your life is much more luxurious than any other time in history, okay? Even if you're poor, you're living a luxurious life. Poor people walking around with $1,000 phones and have air conditioning and eat meat. That's luxurious by world standards throughout all history. The fact that you can eat meat whenever you want to, all this kind of stuff. And because of that, it's made us a softer society. That can offend all of you, and some of you are going to jump on here and say, I'm not soft. Well, of course, I'm generalizing things. But as a society, we are much softer than we have been in the past, or virtually any other society. Are there still a lot of roughnecks and stuff in our society? Absolutely, of course. In fact, you could probably take some of the toughest ones in American society, compare them to any society, because there are still those tough people. But generally speaking, the majority of Americans are much softer than previous generations. And it makes us fearful. It makes us fearful of what's going on. And again, I'm generalizing when I say us. Makes us fearful. And we're worried that we're going to lose what we have. We're worried that bad things are going to happen, and it's going to disrupt our lifestyle. And so, in general, whether they consciously think this or subconsciously think this, Americans are going to be more and more willing to accept totalitarianism, to accept authoritarianism, to accept all of these extremely intrusive, evil things because they're terrified of what they might lose. And we've seen that already. I mean, if you go back the last 75 years in American history, maybe 100 years, and you look at the compromises that's been made, compromises in firearm ownership, compromises in abortion, compromises in prayer in school, just one right after the other, more and more taxation, the Federal Reserve Act, IRS, income tax, all this kind of stuff. And then even in the last, few years, vaccines and elections and all this kind of stuff that Americans more and more accept and are compromise on. It's because they're afraid to resist, whether it's consciously or not. They're afraid to resist because they know if they resist, they're going to lose a good thing. And because they don't want to lose this good thing, they compromise and they accept and they comply. And because of that, I think we're going to see much more compliance. Could we actually see a collapse in the sense that it might be like one of these Hollywood movies where it's like Mad Max or Book of Eli? Yeah, we could. It's possible. I think it's on the table. I don't think it's likely. I think the more likely scenario is it's more like a 1984 or Brave New World kind of scenario where for most people, it actually doesn't look collapsing. It looks like better. There's this new technology, right? And it's all this new, fangled stuff that you get. But that new stuff is really controlling, and people just don't resist. They just comply and comply more, and they complain about it, and they say that they're going to rise up, but then in the end they don't, and they just accept more and more and more of it, to the point that they are, basically cattle in a feedlot. And they don't even realize it at that point. I think that's probably the more likely scenario. And so, there's the prepper theories that all this is just going to cause this barren wasteland across the world. No, I think it's going to cause a barren wasteland for some people. I think for those that are compliant and they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're going to be herded into places, and while they're not going to eat great because they're going to be eating bugs and genetically modified garbage, it's going to be convinced and they will accept it as a better lifestyle, right? For those of us that do resist, that's where it comes in. And so a famine may not come in the way of like an old famine, like a biblical one where there's just no crops growing. The famine may be that you're just not allowed to have the food. You don't have access to the food. Or you have access to the food, but you have to compromise just to eat it because it's genetically modified and got all the DNA and it's bioengineered and all this kind of stuff. So you have to make a decision. Well, I can eat to stay alive, but now I'm compromising and I'm taking this, abomination of food. And so that's kind of more of the scenario that I see happening, is that more and more people just, the vast majority comply. They complain about it, but they comply. And they take their medicine, and the world just becomes darker and darker and more intrusive and totalitarian, authoritarian, and all this kind of stuff. And you and I are on the outside of that. And we're kind of left out in the cold. And yeah, they could round us up if we do a lot of resisting. I would suspect, because just the logistics of rounding people up takes a lot of manpower, a lot of danger. I suspect most of the people that resist on their own privately and aren't trying to start a movement, they're not trying to get others and get this revolution going, will probably be left alone. They won't have anything, but they'll probably be left alone. If you're, as long as you're just off on your own, minding your own business, you don't get anything. You have no access to medical, health care, food, anything like that. But, we might leave you alone for a while because it's a lot of manpower. And so there's going to be those of us on the outside, and that's where the real survival comes in. The world is becoming darker. It's becoming worse. It's becoming more intrusive, but it's doing it at a pace and in a way that the vast majority of the population is going to accept it. They've accepted it so far. and they will continue to accept it. And I promise you, the next pandemic that comes out and the next vaccine, people will be lining up to take it. And the next guy that gets elected for president, people, or the next election, people be lining up to cast their slave vote. I mean, it's the next, tomorrow morning, people gonna be lining up at Walmart and Target and all these other places to get their cheap Chinese junk. I mean, we live on a farm, and it's a bunch of cattle, and we're like in the feedlot. And as long as you're eating the food and doing everything, well, the farmer leaves you alone until it's slaughter day. But the ones that's resisting and tearing up the fence and kicking around and knocking the food things over, they're the ones that's the problem. And that's you and I. The rest of the country, the rest of the world, are complying. And I suspect it's going to continue that way. Will it be any kind of big revolution or civil war? Maybe little regional pockets of it. But I suspect the vast majority of people will just continue to comply. And that's why we need to be prepared. Because it won't just be the government that may one day be our enemy. It will be everybody. Because the compliant cattle will turn against us. Because we're not compliant, and they'll turn against us. It won't need the government to do it. So that's why we have to really batten down the hatches and prepare. I know this is kind of a dark subject on Thanksgiving. I started off all light and happy and thankful, and then went to this. I don't know how that happened. Anyways, that's I would, if you're fortunate enough to spend time with family today, let them know how you feel about them and that you're thankful for them. You never know. It may be the last time. And it's not because anything big is happening. It's because that's how life is. It could be the last time. When you go off to work, you kiss your wife and your kids goodbye, and you do it in a way that it could be the last time that you see them, because it could be. You could be in a car wreck. And so when you spend time with family today, if it's your parents, your grandma, your aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever it is, make sure you tell them how much you love them, because you never know. This may be the last Thanksgiving we have. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.